What do you do when you're the most powerful driver in Formula One, and suddenly the world starts closing doors in your face? That's the position Max Verstappen now finds himself in, a four-time world champion, dominant in pace, relentless in ambition, and yet, not entirely in control of his own destiny. For months, the rumors buzzed louder with each race weekend. Max 2 Mercedes. The idea felt logical, almost inevitable. But just like that, the Mercedes door slammed shut. Toward did it. Toto Wolff, the mastermind behind Mercedes' decade of dominance, recently made a stunning declaration. His team's priority, he said, is George Russell and 17-year-old prodigy Kimi Antonelli. No fireworks, no dramatic twists. Just a calm, corporate-sounding confirmation that Mercedes is heading into 2026 without Verstappen in their plans. But when you listen closely, you realize it wasn't a definitive statement. It was a statement designed to cool the firestorm, not extinguish it. Because if you're truly done with Verstappen, why leave the window cracked? Let's not forget, doesn't even have a long-term contract. He's fighting for a 3-year deal, while Mercedes is only offering one. That's not the behavior of a team fully committed to its driver. It's a chess move. It's a pause for leverage. And behind the scenes, there's more tension than the public knows. Wolff may have told the media he's not interested in Max, but insiders suggest Mercedes' own CEO, Ola Klianis, sees it differently. Reports say he's willing to bypass Wolff to get Verstappen, believing that when the best driver in the world becomes even remotely available, you do not look the other way. But Verstappen isn't just looking at who's interested. He's watching who's ready. Because Red Bull, despite all its history, is starting to wobble. Christian Horner's exit sent shockwaves through the organization. The technical team looks fractured, and while Max still has a contract through 2028, that piece of paper doesn't mean loyalty. It means leverage. It means Red Bull has until the new 2026 regulations to prove they can keep up hand right now. Their new Ford powertrain project isn't inspiring much confidence. So here we are, Verstappen, in his prime, with the world watching, stuck between what he's built and what he could build elsewhere. Mercedes isn't rolling out the red carpet, but they aren't shutting the gate, either. And the man with the final say, Ola Klianis, might still have cards to play. Because let's be honest, this isn't just about contracts or driver pairings. This is about legacy, about whether Verstappen wants to go down as a Red Bull legend or something bigger, something untouchable. The truth is, Max Verstappen is a prisoner of circumstance, but only for now. Red Bull made him a generational champion. They gave him speed, freedom, and an entire organization built around his talent. But those foundations are shaken. The post-Horner Red Bull era feels different. There's no longer that same impenetrable aura. The technical direction is uncertain. The leadership vacuum is widening. And the looming partnership with Ford to usher in a new era has so far delivered more skepticism than excitement. Verstappen knows the reality. If Red Bull gets their 2026 engine wrong, his career enters dangerous territory, because unlike Lewis Hamilton, who built his empire across 2 teams, Max has only known Red Bull. If they fail him under the new regulations, it won't just be a bad season. It could mean years wasted in a car, incapable of delivering wins, let alone championships. And Max doesn't race to finish 5th. He races to dominate. He's openly admitted before that he has no desire to grow old in Formula One. He's not here to pad his stats. He's here to win. So if Red Bull falters, there's no sentiment strong enough to keep him. But here's where the plot thickens. Red Bull is already trying to adapt, maybe even desperately. Some insiders claim the recent shakeups, including the removal of Horner and the internal restructure of the technical team, were not just for optics. They were calculated moves to keep Max satisfied. One rumor is especially wild, that Red Bull offered Verstappen a stake in their new structure, possibly even naming rights linked to the Racing Bulls. Imagine that. Max Verstappen not just as lead driver, but as persona, a king in his own castle. That's not just a retention strategy. That's a power move. Still, power alone isn't enough. What good is a stake in a failing empire? If the 2026 power unit is sluggish, unreliable, or off pace with Mercedes or Honda-powered rivals, Verstappen's influence means little. His legacy depends on performance. And if Red Bull can't guarantee that, they may be pushing him right into the arms of another team. And that brings us to the wild card no one expected, Aston Martin. Yes, they've already confirmed Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll for 2026, but let's not pretend that lineup is locked in stone. If Verstappen expresses even a hint of interest, the entire dynamic shifts. Alonso is a legend, but at 44, no team in their right mind would pass on Max for nostalgia. Verstappen joining Aston Martin would be seismic. Honda power, Newey's potential involvement, car deals expertise. It's the perfect formula for a serious title run. If Red Bull stumbles and Mercedes stays committed to its youth project, Aston Martin could become the most dangerous option on the board. Inside Mercedes, the tension is no longer subtle. On one hand, you have Toto Wolff, calm, methodical, fiercely loyal to his long-term vision. On the other, you have Ola Klianis, calculated, business-driven, and clearly unafraid to override his team principle if it means bringing Max Verstappen into the fold. And this division isn't speculation. The rumors surrounding Linnaeus pushing behind the scenes to court Verstappen didn't come out of nowhere. For the CEO of Mercedes-Benz, letting a generational talent like Max slip by without a fight could be seen as a strategic failure. And when you're running one of the most prestigious brands in the world, failure even theoretical is unacceptable. But Wolff isn't budging. He's publicly insisted that Mercedes' future lies with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. And if that's really the direction, it's a massive gamble. Russell, while talented, hasn't yet proven himself to be a championship-winning force. His highs have been brilliant, but his lows often costly. And Antonelli, though gifted, hasn't even turned a wheel in Formula One yet. To put the fate of Mercedes' 2026 campaign in their hands is bold, possibly reckless. Because when the new engine era begins, there's no time to wait for development. The title fight will be instant and unforgiven. Meanwhile, Verstappen is caught in a pressure cooker. He's being courted quietly by factions. Within Mercedes, he's watching Red Bull scramble to hold on to him, and all while knowing that 2026 could either elevate or derail his legacy. Reports now suggest that Red Bull is so desperate to retain him that they've offered contractual control unlike anything seen before. Some even claim Verstappen would have executive-level influence on driver decisions and long-term development. Strategy essentially, a driver with the power of a team boss. That's not just rare, that's unprecedented. And yet, you can't buy performance with promises. Red Bull's future hinges on its ability to deliver a winning engine. So far, that project has raised more doubts than confidence. Their work with Ford remains unproven at the highest level. No wins, no races, no data, just uncertainty. And Verstappen isn't going to gamble on blind faith, no matter how many zeros are on the contract. He wants numbers, results, testing benchmarks, and most importantly, he wants to know that when the lights go out in Bahrain 2026, his car is capable of blowing past McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, and yes, even Aston Martin. And here's the real danger. Time is running out. The longer Red Bull waits to prove their powertrain is competitive, the more Verstappen starts to mentally drift. And when a driver starts imagining life elsewhere, especially one as ambitious and strategic as Max, the clock is already ticking. Loyalty only lasts until performance stops justifying it. And so, we're staring down the barrel of the biggest question in Formula One right now. Where does Max Verstappen go from here? The Mercedes chapter seems to be closing, at least publicly. Red Bull is dangling everything they possibly can to keep him, including control, loyalty, and legacy. Aston Martin lurks quietly in the shadows, a dark horse with the resources, the technical expertise, and most importantly, Honda power. But none of this guarantees anything, because no matter how strong the team looks on paper, nothing replaces the brutal test of race day performance. And Max knows that better than anyone. As much as this story is about contracts and driver pairings, it's also about timing. Verstappen is still young, but he's been in the sport for over a decade already. His focus isn't just on what happens next season, it's on how the next era will define him. 2026 will usher in not only a new regulation set, but a brand new competitive order. The field will reset, power will shift, and that means every decision Max makes now will echo into his future. If he gets it wrong, it could cost him years of his prime. If he gets it right, he could become one of the most unstoppable forces the sport has ever seen. And let's be clear, Max isn't afraid to walk away. He's said it more than once. If F1 becomes more politics than performance, or if the joy of racing disappears in a mess of poor decisions and misaligned priorities, he'll leave. That's why 2026 is the ultimate fork in the road. Red Bull needs to give him more than a good engine, they need to give him belief. They need to show him that they're capable of reinventing themselves in a new era where Ferrari is resurging, McLaren is hunting, Mercedes is reloading, and Aston Martin is rising. Right now, he stays, but right now is a fragile thing in Formula One. All it takes is one bad engine test, one fractured relationship, one irresistible offer. Verstappen may be under contract until 2028, but the moment he feels his championship window closing, he'll force a move. And let's not kid ourselves, any team would make room for him in a heartbeat. Alonso, Russell, even Leclerc know one seat is safe if Max says yes. So where does this leave us? With a driver standing at the peak of his powers, a team in transition, and a sport on the brink of its next revolution, this isn't just about where Max Verstappen drives. It's about where Formula One itself is heading. What would you do in his position? Would you stick with Red Bull and hope the engine delivers? Push for a move to Aston Martin and bet on the Honda resurrection? Or wait for Mercedes' next shakeup and take over their future?